Welcome to Wartime Cafe. We are at Assaha Cafe Hotel, and we have with us a new guest that you haven't seen yet, Dr. Mohamad Hasan Sweidan. Welcome to our show, Mohamad.
Thank you.
Mohamad is a PhD holder with management, and he's doing another PhD in international relations. He is an instructor at Al-Jinan University in Saida, and a political researcher that has been publishing at the Cradle Media website, as well as co-author of many books and papers in academic publications. Mohamad, there's a lot to talk about. Just now, of course, there's the assassinations that happened here in Beirut, close to us here in Al-Dahiye, and the assassination in Iran, and the assassinations in Iraq. There's a lot to talk about, but we want to start with something that will help us probably discuss these assassinations and the prospects of war. You wrote an article a week ago in the Cradle about the cognitive warfare as part of the psychological warfare, and how that plays in this struggle between the Zionist colony and the axis of resistance as a whole. Help our audience understand this concept of cognitive warfare. How does it play in such a war that's playing out right now?
Well, I truly believe that the types of strategies that are not so obvious, that you don't see directly, are the most dangerous strategies that an enemy can use against you. And that's the problem with psychological warfare, with cognitive warfare. You can't see its effect directly. It has a cumulative effect that you may see or observe throughout the years or throughout a long period of time. And that's the problem of it. Cognitive warfare is part of a psychological warfare. Every action, military or not military, every action an enemy does on you, on another enemy, on another country, has a psychological aspect. For example, what happened in Beirut southern suburb? The main goal was to target a senior military leader in Hizbullah, but this also has a psychological aspect, a psychological impact on people. Israelis wanted Lebanese people, the resistance society mainly, to feel the fear, to feel that, Israel has the superiority, it has the strength, it has the will to hit the southern suburb whenever it feels it has to do so. And this is the psychological impact people are going to feel, and it's normal for them to feel this. But the dangerous thing is that not knowing that this is part of a psychological war, of a cognitive war. And recent studies have said that previously the main target of psychological warfare was to impact the decision you take. Because there is a senior military strategist, American one, John Boyd. He stated that how you take a decision is based on four main stages. The stage one is observation. You see something. Stage two is to analyze what you see. Stage three is to take the decision, and stage four is to take the action. Psychological warfare impacts the second stage, the analysis part, because you see, for example, Israel hitting the suburb, or you see something regarding any impact or any action Israel takes. But when you analyze it differently, then the decision taken will be taken differently, and the action taken will also be taken on the wrong analysis you made, and that's the danger of psychological warfare. But recent studies moved beyond this. They said that not only psychological warfare affects the decision you take, the analysis part, but it also affects the whole society, because the new role of it is to destroy the society from within. In a way, by you feel that you don't have the will and the power to defeat your enemy, and that's why you want to support the resistance more. And that's the main target of psychological warfare and cognitive warfare. And that's why it's important for people to know that feeling fear is normal, feeling that Israel has superiority is normal. Well, this is a fact. Well, no one today doesn't know that Israel has a military superiority over Hizbullah and Lebanon, or intelligence superiority. This is a fact today we can't ignore. But this doesn't mean that we don't have the power to maintain deterrence, to achieve military goals through other things. And that's what people should also keep in mind. And keeping in mind this is so important because in psychological warfare, the battlefield is people's mind. It's where the battle goes on. And that's why it's so dangerous.
So, there has been attention paid by the imperialists and the Zionists on playing this cognitive or psychological warfare against the Arabic people in general, people here in Lebanon. We saw that playing out in Syria, breaking down the society into sectarian fiefdoms and making people lose faith in their national identity. How do you see or how would you evaluate the other side, cognitive warfare, psychological warfare, that of the resistance, when they are addressing the Zionist society with the same hopes of breaking the glue that keeps this society together, breaking it down into tribalism and internal fights? Do you think the axis of resistance has been successful in such cognitive warfare?
To a certain limit, of course, successful, but to a certain limit. And that's because, Israelis always or have said recently in recent studies that psychological and cognitive warfare is more dangerous on Israel than Iranian missiles and rockets. This is how they treat things. And that's why they have put several defense layers or defend their people, Israelis inside of occupied Palestine. And that's why it became hard for the acts of resistance to achieve a huge success in psychological warfare, but this doesn't mean they didn't achieve success. Well, let's have some facts. You know that more than 750,000 Israelis have left Israel. Well, you know that polls have showed that between 28% and 33% of Israelis are always thinking about leaving Israel. Well, why is that? Well, the Israeli economy is really good. The military, it has a very good military. It has one of the strongest intelligence in the world. It has the support of major nuclear superpowers and mainly the US. So why would you leave a country that has all the security, one of the most important intelligence, one of the most important economy, one of the most important technologies? Well, it's because your enemies have been able to enter your mind and affect the way you think, and to keep in your mind that with all this strength, there's also enemies on your borders that will never let you stay here safe. And that's what they think, and that's what's found there. And that's why 33% of them are always thinking about leaving Israel. And today's cognitive warfare, it's mainly on social media, because social media is the tool that reaches millions and millions of people easily. Who controls social media today? It's the West. Well, there are many words that we can't use on social media. There are many pictures we can't use, whereas Israelis, Americans, Westerns, they can do whatever they want. And that's why our effect was limited. But let me give an evidence about, for me, it's the most recent and valuable effect. This war that erupted on October 7th, it is the first war we have with Israel where we control part of the narrative. Mm-hmm. It was always the Western narrative. Well, Muslims are terrorists. Well, Palestinians are terrorists. Well, whatever narrative they want. It's the narrative the whole world believes, and it's the narrative that reaches the whole world. Our narrative never reached people. This is the first war where our narrative reached people. It reached Western people, it reached people in the East, and that's mainly what led university students to come to the streets in the US and in Europe. And that's mainly what Israeli people saw also on social media. We were able to show them that we have the strength, we have the will, we have what's needed to achieve the target, and that's what affected them psychologically. What do they know about us other than what they see on the social media? And without us being active there, they wouldn't have known what we are able to do, and we wouldn't have been able to fight in their minds. And I think we have been successful to a certain limit, but this success is accumulating throughout time, and we are seeing its accumulation or its impact through numbers by Israelis living in several poles inside of Israel.
So, for decades, the West has been using its media empires, movies, TV shows, everything to insert Zionist superiority. You'd see a movie about doctors or a TV show about surgery, and suddenly somebody talks about Karmaga.
Yeah, true.
And inserting constantly the propaganda of usurpation of our heritage, our Jewish Christian heritage that has been usurped by the Europeans and perverted to fit the ideological aims of Zionism. But now, as you mentioned, there's been a kind of a breach within the social media spaces that are still controlled by the West.
True.
And in a way, it's not because of the axis of resistance abilities, but because the Palestinian communities and the diaspora communities of the Arabic peoples who got involved willingly without anybody enticing them or paying them in the millions in flooding the social media. And so in a way, the actions on the ground of the axis of resistance that showed the ability to combat the Zionists on a battlefield and withstand this battle, added to it this encouragement of the masses of people that are on social media is probably playing the biggest role in this cognitive warfare in the mind. Do you see it like that?
Yeah, I only don't agree with that, with you saying that it's not because of the acts of resistance abilities, because the diaspora wouldn't have been encouraged to be this active if it wasn't at the beginning for the people in the acts of resistance sharing their narrative on social media, because everything started in a specific place. The narrative on social media started here. It started first in Palestine. If it weren't for some people in Palestine who took the shots, took the videos, spoke the truth, we wouldn't have known. In Lebanon, for example.
You are right.
We took the narrative from Palestine, in Lebanon, we gave it to another country, maybe in Iraq, moving on to Iran. So it's like a fireball snowball moving from one country to another, and it reached the diaspora, who also have a certain reach. And let's not forget, people inside the countries of the acts of resistance also do travel. We have people participating in scientific conferences, participating in business meetings outside the region, and they hold this cause. And let me give you a live example. I was in Moscow from October 23 till December 3. And, I'm a Lebanese guy supporting the acts of resistance. And for me, Palestine is a cause I live for. It's not only related to a specific war it's a cause I live for. I dedicate my life to help in any way I can. If I can write an article, I can. If I can take a video, I will do that. Participate in a conference. It's something that controls my actions, whether I want it or not. But it does so. So when I went to Moscow and I participated in more than 4 international scientific conferences, and I had lectures in some universities, I was always speaking about the narrative with people from all over the world. Well, what I was telling people, for example, one from Armenia, one from France, one from Serbia and others, they were convinced by this narrative, and they were also telling them to people in their countries, in their languages. It's the snowball I'm telling you about. But this snowball started from one place, and this place was inside of Gaza. It started inside of Gaza, towards the axis of resistance, reaching the whole world.
So how would you judge the mass media of the axis of resistance versus their social media strategies?
Well, to be honest, I believe the main problem is regarding the resources. As you know, there's a huge gap between the acts of resistance resources and Israeli and Western resources? Well, they have, they are the ones who control resources all over the world, whereas the axis of resistance has several priorities. And when you are fighting against such a strong enemy, your first priority is military. If you're active on social media, if you have a very active mass media platforms and you don't have the right weapons to fight Israel, so what do you need social media for? So the first priority is military. Then comes maybe the the media channels, then the social media. So it's about priorities. With respect to the resources the axis of resistance has, I think that social media achieved much more success than media platforms, and this has a reason. You need much more resources to be able for your TV channel to reach millions of people, but you need much less resources for social media to reach millions of people. You can get millions of citizens in the axis of resistance countries to be active on social media, but you can't bring these millions to the TV channels to reach others. So it's mainly because of resources, and that's the main gap between us and the West, and that's the main gap between social media platforms and other media platforms, and that's why.
Yeah, you remind me of President Putin saying that it's a fool errand to think that you can win a propaganda war against the United States empire with all the media outlets that it controls across this world, and definitely the social media or the democratization of media through this social media, the limited democratizations that we had made a huge difference, just like the democratization of military equipment and technologies that we saw that brought now the drones and guided missiles that are making a huge difference in the battlefield. You know, I'm gonna step back a little bit before we jump into the day. You come from the south of Lebanon, from Haniyeh village, right on the border. We visited with Free Palestine TV your quaint town. It's been hit multiple times inside the town itself, not only at the edges. And you are a resident of Al-Dahiye. So tell us about the relationship you have with these two locations, Haniyeh and Al-Dahiye of Beirut.
Well, I'll start speaking about Dahiye, because it takes the major part in my heart for me. It means a lot. Well, you know, people usually are attached to things, to places. These are the things that make memories for you. These are the things that you remember throughout time. It's not only me, it's people all over the world. When you ask, for example, when you ask any person in any country about memories, they remember things, they remember people, they remember places. This is what you remember. Well, I was raised in Dahiye. I used to play football on the streets when the streets were safe. We used to put 2 stones as 2 goals, and there's always someone who has the ball, and he controls the game because he has the ball. So I have one, for me, it was one of the most beautiful memories throughout childhood. You know, when I watch videos, for example, in Brazilian streets, I think that, oh, it seems a lot like Dahiye. When I watch videos in poor countries, because, you know, the majority of places in Dahiye are poor places. So when I watch videos in poor places, kids playing on the streets because they can't pay to play in playgrounds and football fields, so we play in the streets, just 2 stones, this is the goal, one who has the ball controls the game, and you play in the streets. So you go from one place to place, and it was, for me, it was one of the things I can never forget. And there was no propaganda about Dahiye at that time when I was a kid, I mean before the year 2000, because Hizbullah was not yet seen as a major threat to American interests. So propaganda didn't target them a lot. They were still so busy with Soviet Union, with Russians, with other countries. So we were living peacefully. We were living the beauty of the city, the beauty of Dahiye. So it means a lot to me to be part of it. When I grew up, and mainly after 2006 war, well, Dahiye became another thing for me. It's memories.
You were in the Dahiye in 2006?
I was in Beirut, and mainly in Hamra.
Okay.
But after 2006,
Did your house get your home?
yeah,
in
my
Dahiye
house
that-
was hit in Dahiye. So yes, we had to live in another place, then return to it after a certain time. But after 2006, Dahiye was different for me because now it has a meaning. It resembles something. It
became
resembles
an internationally known location.
exactly.
And it's not Paris or anything.
No,
It's-
it's the sign of resistance.
Yeah.
When you speak Dahiye, you speak strength. When you speak Dahiye, you speak people who are willing to pay their houses, to pay their souls for a certain cause. So it moved from two stones and playing football to a symbol of freedom, to symbol of resisting the enemy, of protecting your
Pride.
country.
honor.
Yeah, it's a huge honor. So whenever someone asks me from where you are, the first thing I remember, I'm from Dahiye, and I'm proud to say that I'm from Dahiye. And why don't I speak a lot about my village, Haniyeh? Well, Haniyeh was occupied by Israel, and I didn't get to know Haniyeh until after the year 2000. So my whole childhood was in Dahiye, and usually memories are made in your childhood. So my memories are in Dahiye. So when Haniyeh was liberated in the year 2000, and let me just stop here, and it was liberated in the year 2000. There are people who fighted the Israeli enemy, the Israeli entity, and kicked them out of my village so that I can return to my village after the year 2000. So I returned to my village. We didn't have house. The whole village was on ground. So we took around 6 years to have only one floor built. Then we had the war. We couldn't return till after 2 years of that. So I didn't have a childhood there. I met my village in a proper way, maybe after the year 2007, 2008. So my memories there are more as a teenager than as a young child. And that's why for me...
You don't have nostalgia.
Yeah. My nostalgia is
It's
in
to that
Dahiye.
soccer
Yeah,
playing
the two
in
balls.
the alley.
Yeah, and it's in the two balls. It's with, it was at that time... all of us in the neighborhood was like a family, because usually there's a huge difference between cities and villages. They say that villages are the place where the whole village is a family. Dahiye is a family. If you ask people living in Dahiye, well, most of us know most of the people living in Dahiye. If we don't know them personally, we saw them. So if we meet them, we know that, I saw you before. We know each other. It's like a huge village, but it means a lot for every one of us, although it has its own problems, and no place doesn't have problems. But still, what it resembles regarding either my childhood or in the political and the political field, political aspect, it means a lot. And now it became an international word. Israel now has an ideology related to Dahiye. So the Americans, Biden knows Dahiye. So that famous Dahiye is in the world.
And for our viewers, the word Dahiye just means suburb.
Yeah, it's
alJanobieh, the southern suburb of Beirut. But it's good that they actually use the name in Arabic, because it makes it into a special place. And hopefully it does penetrate their cognitive and psychological spaces as Zionists. So,
and you know about this point. Well, if you tell an Israeli Dahiye, the word Dahiye, and you can see his reaction, this is cognitive warfare. Yeah. Just tell him.
But they built that on themselves. Because they made so much fear in their own population.
True.
They did half of the work for the axis of resistance.
I met an American guy once in Moscow, and when he asked me about where do I come from, and I told him Dahiye, his whole reaction changed. So this is cognitive warfare, psychological warfare. It's meant, I need Israelis to feel the fear when you hear that I am from Dahiye.
Well, talking about Dahiye, now we can talk about a little bit more serious situation. Obviously, we're very close to the location where the attack happened last night.
Sure.
And Fouad Ali Shukr was assassinated. 2 missiles were fired from a drone, most probably hit the building. It's 8 stories, 8 floors high, and at least 5 now martyrs have been counted, 2 of them being children, and 76, 78 people are injured. This was a very aggressive psychological warfare, cognitive warfare operation. It happened just after the coming back of Netanyahu from Washington, D.C. How do you see the effects of this on the whole Dahiye since yesterday?
You know, they say that it's not wrong to feel fear. What's wrong is not to feel fear. It's normal for every one of us, for every person in the world, to fear something. When you speak about bombing and attacking militarily, in the southern suburb of Beirut, in Dahiye, well, it's normal for people to feel fear at the time. But let's remember the first reaction of people who also were having this feeling of fear. They went to the streets, they raised their hands, just shouting and yelling that, give us the revenge we deserve. Go and attack Israel. So at the point where they feel most of the fear, they were willing to attack the ones who hit Dahiye. And that's the importance of countering cognitive warfare. And that shows how the Israelis failed in this cognitive warfare. Of course, I always try to reassure that feeling fear is normal, because some people are afraid of telling this. No, it's normal to feel fear. But the most important part is to know how to treat this fear. And this is how people treated it the same time this happened. And I truly don't think that the cognitive goal of the attack was successful. And this is not based only on this experience. Well, we have been passing through a lot of experiences with Israel. You know, after the year 2006, after the war in 2006, and the huge destruction in Dahiye, and well, the huge destruction in the south of Lebanon, and buildings, homes destroyed, people martyred, people killed, and people wounded, and everything. Well, you may expect that after this, the majority of people will tell the resistance, we can't bear it anymore. The cost is too high. The whole Dahiye was destroyed. Well, what happened from 2006 till now? From 2006 till now, the resistance became a regional power. And let me just state something. For you to become a regional power, you need resources. The main asset you need is what? It's people. From where does the resistance in Lebanon come with these people? It's from the society. The resistance are people living in the society. They are people working in the society. They are people that have supermarkets, university instructors, doctors, engineers. These are the people who are also fighting the Israeli entity. So for Hizbullah to move from a local power in 2006 to regional power today, it needs resources, it needs people. So they didn't ask Hizbullah that we can't bear it anymore, but rather they went to the resistance, asking to take part of what it is doing. And that's what it gave it the ability to do what it's doing today. If you hear, for example, speeches by leaders of Hizbullah, they tell you that in 2006, in every village in the south of Lebanon during the war, they had a limited number of people fighting. Hizbullah's military were minimum. But
like around 30,000 fighters at the time.
Maybe, yeah, but what about now? Well, now Sayyid Nasrallah spoke several times that when we have a certain battle, we tell people to leave. You exceeded the number of people we want. So that's how people reacted to 2006.
According to Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, there was at least 200,000 Lebanese fighters inside Lebanese territory.
Yeah.
So which means opens the door for the non-Lebanese and the non-Lebanese that are inside the Lebanon and outside Lebanon also.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a
and
regional power.
That's a reaction, you know. What I mean is that it's like countering the cognitive warfare. But the Israelis wanted from people seeing the destruction to just feel fear and sit aside, but rather they now said, we want to take part of it.
So Sayyid Fouad Ali Shukr, for our viewers that don't know, he's one of the original fighters that built the core of Hezbollah. He was involved in the fight in 1982
At age 21.
and in the year 2000. And he was also involved in aiding our brothers and sisters in Bosnia during the Yugoslavia wars. And he was currently the highest ranking officer within the military corps of Hezbollah, basically the commander-in-chief.
Yeah, sure.
And so there must be another effect to this assassination that we shouldn't minimize.
Sure.
Here is a man that was crucial in the Hezbollah that we know today, that has been assassinated. What do you think would be the effect on Hezbollah's abilities?
You know, how I view Sayyid Fouad Shukr. He started at a very young age. You know, when you read his career, which was published today, well, in 1982 he was 21 years old. At 21 years old, you're facing an entity supported by the U.S., by nuclear power, which something that needs a lot of courage and a lot of belief in what you are doing. His role since then till now his career has been full of achievements regarding to fighting Israel, fighting the U.S., helping the cause, the Palestinian cause, the Lebanese cause, the acts of resistance cause. So it's a fact that he has a very huge, important role. As a matter of fact, you know, I always perceive Israel as really it's one of the strongest entities in the world, and for them to view assassinating Sayyid Fouad Shukr this important means that this guy was really hurting one of the strongest entities in the world, and that's very important for him to be for the Americans to be happy for what was achieved. It means this guy was really hurting American interests in the region. It means for people believing in the cause, he is a legend, and that's important, and important for us to view him as a legend in this resistance in Lebanon.
But he was not known for most people.
True.
And we today saw his first ever public pictures.
True. Not only him. Well, Hezbollah has always tried to hide his military leaders, and that's mainly because the whole world fights Hezbollah today. It's not only Israel.
The whole West.
The whole West,
okay.
Of course.
The West is the whole world is with us.
Yeah, true. The whole West fights Hezbollah today. So for you to be able to achieve your military goals, you need to hide your military leaders from the streets, from the intelligence, from American and Western intelligence units, and from the Western and American community. And that's why I think that's the main cause he was hiding from them in order to achieve the needed goals in the most suitable way. But after assassinating him, it's our obligation to speak about his legacy, what he did, what he achieved. And you know, I really respect that he didn't only achieve things relating to the Lebanese community. He achieved things relating to people in Bosnia, and he achieved things relating to people in Palestine, in Syria,
yes,
in Iraq. So his legacy goes beyond Lebanon, beyond the 10,452 square kilometers. It's in the whole region, reaching Europe. And not only that, he holds the signs, the signals of freedom. It's something that many people also in the West believe in. But the Western politicians demonizing Hezbollah, demonizing him, is what keeping his true identity away from people in the West. But
demonizing all Arabs and Muslims in general.
Not demonizing everyone who stands against American interests, not only in the region but also in the world. Well, Russians were suddenly being demonized after 2022. So it's what they do, it's what they play. It's their soft power war against all the countries and people that are against them. So it's our obligation to show his legacy, because he resembles freedom, he resembles resistance, he resembles fighting occupation. And these are things that every normal person believes in. Well, if you ask, as you know, they say that children, when they speak the truth inside of a person, because they are still not being affected by soft power tools and by politics, by media. If you ask a child, what do you think about freedom? He will directly tell you, well, it's a positive thing. What do you think about resistance against an occupation? It's a good thing. What do you think about helping people in other countries who are occupied? It's a good thing. What do you think about someone who works to defend children in other countries? Of course, it's a good thing. It's something that any normal person will respect. But the problem is that this true narrative doesn't reach people inside, mainly in the West. And that's why it's our obligation to tell what we believe in. We believe in the Palestinian cause. It's not because Palestinians are only Arabs or because of something related to Muslims. No, it's because of Palestinians are being occupied, children are being killed, women are being dragged in the streets, men are being taken to prison without any reason. It's because of simple things that any person would believe, any normal person would believe in. And that's what Sayyid Fouad Shukr was doing. He was achieving these goals that any normal person would respect. And that's what made the Israelis angry. It's because he was successful. If he wasn't successful, many people hold the sign of liberty, freedom, fighting occupation, but they weren't successful. The Americans left them. We'll keep them working. It doesn't make any difference. If Sayyid Fouad Shukr wasn't successful in what he was doing, he wouldn't have been assassinated.
He would have died of old age.
Exactly.
Well, this last night was a very busy night. First was the assassination of Sayyid Ali Shukr. And then it was followed by drone attacks, American drone attacks on the Popular Mobilization units in Iraq, specifically on the team that is responsible for the drone units and the drone weapons. And then, of course, there was the assassination of the head of the PolitBuro of Hamas, Ismail, Haniyeh, in the middle of Tehran, on the day of the inauguration of the president of Iran, the newly elected president. These were all clearly, number one, coordinated with the United States, with direct involvement of the United States, because we saw the assassinations in Iraq were conducted by the United States. These were all timed together for a reason. Part of it is the psychological warfare, the cognitive warfare that you're talking about. But the other part is clearly, operational. You just took out the commander-in-chief of Hizbullah. They took out the drone unit of the Popular Mobilization Unit, and they took out the chief negotiator of Hamas. How do you judge this night? This 12 hours of hell.
Let me ask you a question. If I ask you today, what's the number one priority for Netanyahu today? Well, I believe the number one priority of Netanyahu today is inside of Gaza. It's the direct threat. It's the title of the war. Not achieving a successful ending inside of Gaza is a failure for Israel. Number one priority is Gaza. So, if the number one priority in Gaza, why would you take an action in Lebanon, in Iran, and in Iraq? Why would you open three fronts before them in Yemen, 3-4 fronts at the same time, while your priority isn't there? Well, it's obvious. It's because these fronts are really hurting you. You can't bear it anymore there, and that's why you're going there. You're going outside of your main priority, because these four sides are hurting you to a limit that you can't bear it anymore. Because, if you're concentrating really on Gaza and the other sides aren't achieving or aren't hurting you to a limit that you can't bear, then you'll keep your concentration inside of Gaza. Then you would achieve the goal, then you would go to another battlefield. But he's not doing that. He's opening different fronts at the same time. Well, speaking about it realistically, it's stupid to do so. But he is doing so because he is being forced to do so. He can't concentrate on Gaza alone. Well, let's see what Americans and Israelis are saying. If you read Israeli media, mainly newspapers, and Israeli main analysts, they say that if it wasn't for Yemen, Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, we would have achieved the military goal inside of Gaza much earlier. Well, that's them declaring that these 4 fronts were successful in what they're doing. Number one, let's see what Americans are telling Netanyahu. Antony Blinken, I think in April or in May, he told the Israelis that even if you go in Rafah, even if you finish Rafah, you won't achieve anything more. He told them that you entered Khan Yunis, then you went out of Khan Yunis, but still Hamas is there. So what he is doing, what he is telling them in military studies, we express it as Israel has reached a peak point. The peak point is in military studies is where inside of a war you reach a point where you can't achieve anything more than you have achieved before. And that's where you start going from a tactical win to a strategic defeat. Americans are telling Israelis that you are doing that. And that's the first advice Lloyd Austin, the American and not Minister of Defense, I call him the Minister of War, American War Minister, the first advice he told to Israelis, be careful not to move from a tactical win to a strategic defeat. And I think the main reason that made Netanyahu take this decision at the same time, 3 to 4 fronts, is because he is going to a strategic defeat inside of Gaza, and he is not being able to concentrate to turn this defeat into a success. And that's why he has to stop the way these 4 fronts are working. But you know, you remember after April, in April, after the Israelis attacked the consulate in Iran.
No, in Damascus.
In Damascus. Do you remember what the intelligence assessment was after April 14? The Israeli intelligence assessment, officially told Netanyahu that we made a mistake in advising you to hit the consulate and that Iran won't respond in a way that hurts us. They told him that it was a mistake. What they did today, they repeated the same mistake. So you declared it was a mistake. Why do you repeat it? It's because you feel that whatever is the cost of this mistake, I can't bear the current situation anymore. I have to move. I have to take a decision, even if I have to pay a cost. But the problem is that till today, he doesn't know the cost he will bear.
So let's talk about that cost. I mean, up until now, the axis of resistance as a whole has been, their main strategy is to provide support fronts to the Palestinians in Gaza in playing a war of attrition, basically, situation to increase the heat on Israel for it to hopefully collapse internally and end the struggle that way, limiting the killing field to the Gaza extermination camp so we don't have millions of dead across the region.
Sure.
Is that strategy working?
Well, in my opinion, it is working, and if it wasn't working, the Americans won't be a lot obsessed with the whole region right now, and Israelis won't be a lot obsessed, and we wouldn't have seen such internal disputes between different political parties inside of Israel. So there are facts on ground that tell you that no, these support fronts are successful in what they are doing. And
how long can they work? I mean, we already have half of the population in Gaza either massacred, martyred, 250,000 at least dead according to the Lancet and others, and 1 million injured. So that's half of the population already in these 10 months. If we just calculate from now till the American election, there probably will be no Palestinians left in Gaza.
Let me ask you a question in another way. When we in Lebanon or in any country of active resistance, even in Palestine, when we took the decision to stand against Israel, Didn't we know that there's a cost? We knew that there's a cost. We knew that at a certain time, our lives may be in danger, but there is a cause that we want to achieve. So for us, we don't count martyrs. Every one of these martyrs means a lot to us. Every one of these martyrs resembles everything we defend for, but we don't count numbers. If we believe in a cause that we are fighting the whole Western community for it. We are fighting nuclear powers. We are fighting the #1 empire in the world to achieve our cause. So it's normal to pay the cost we are paying now. And of course, Palestinians are paying the hugest cost and the whole acts of resistance. But we know the costs. We know who we are fighting. But we also know that we are on the right track. Let's see how Israel was in 1982. Well, before 1948. Who used to dare to start hitting Israel in that time? No one. In 2024, it was Lebanon who started hitting Israel. This, if you asked someone in 1990s, for example, well, do you believe that we will reach a day where Lebanon will start a front with Israel? Oh, no. It's impossible. Israel, #1 entity in the world. It's American entity in the region. It's impossible. What happened in 2024? So let's see what will happen in the years to come, in the time to come. So yeah, the support fronts are successful, and every country in the axis of resistance has a certain role. For example, Yemen. Well, Yemen is the only country in the axis of resistance now that moved the threat from a local to a regional to an international. So now they are speaking about maritime threats. Now they are speaking about European economy paying costs. Well, you have to pay the costs. You are supporting Israel, so you are part of the war. The Yemenis are participating in making Europeans pay the cost, making Americans pay the cost. So every country has its own role, is achieving its own goals in the way it finds best. But I think the most important thing in the acts of resistance is that every country in it is realistic in a way that it views things realistically. We know that Israel is very strong. We know that Israel can let us pay a lot, costs a lot in our lives and what we own and everything. But we are willing to pay these costs for the cause we believe in. Are Israelis willing to pay the costs? Let's ask them.
Well, maybe this solidarity front's strategy would have worked in a normal situation where the enemy is a rational actor.
Okay.
But our enemy right now is an irrational actor, and our enemy has declared, and maybe the axis of resistance leadership didn't believe the leadership in the Zionists when they said that they are in an existential war.
True.
And once you say that you are in an existential war, that means it's a zero-sum game.
True.
Okay. And we have not seen an existential war actually as humanity since the end of the colonial invasions of the Americas and Oceania, where it was either the colonists or the indigenous. There's no in between. Even World War II was not an existential war. The German people still exist. The Jewish people still exist. The Russians still exist. We're right now being told by Netanyahu and the Americans behind them that this is an existential war, and which means that for Israel to exist, the Palestinian people have to cease to exist. Any support for the Palestinian people from the whole axis of resistance and anyone behind them needs to cease to exist. This is why these assassinations are happening. Do you think that the assessments within the axis of resistance will change now with these assassinations and the clear indications that there will be no backing down?
The first thing, I don't agree that Israel is an irrational actor. Well, I think till now it's acting rationally in the maximum way. First of all, regarding genocide and killing people, it's Israel's identity. It's not something new. It's not something irrational it does. For Israel, when you speak rationality, you see how rational they are regarding the way they think, not regarding the way we think. So if you're a criminal, it's rational for you to steal. So there are people who conduct genocide very normally and sleep at night without having any problems. The difference is that previously the world didn't know about these genocides. Now there's social media, so they knew about them. So I believe now Israel is rational, and when you face an existential threat, then you will act the way they will act. They are acting. So they are acting rationally regarding the way they view this war. And when they speak about an existential threat, I think it's not an existential threat for Israel as a country, but it's an existential threat for the right wing inside of Israel, for the Jewish identity of the country. Because inside of Israel there are two parties. One party who needs the American view of Israel, the liberal, secular view. They want Israel to be a secular country, a liberal country. Well, Netanyahu doesn't want this secular identity. He is pushing towards a Jewish right-wing identity. So what he is speaking about, an existential threat, it's an existential threat for the Jewish identity of the country. And that's what he's protecting. If he loses the war,
but that's what Israel is. Israel is a Jewish supremacist colony.
No, I don't think so. It's that
if it is not a Jewish state, then it's not Israel. It will be Palestine with Jewish people in it.
No, for me, I think the title is Jewish state to give us a religious background, to say that it's Muslim attacking religious Jews inside of the region. That's why they are having the title of a Jewish state. But its true identity is it's an American entity in the region.
Okay, so let's say it's a European colony, right? Let's take out the
True.
The only way it can stay a European colony is to have a European majority.
Yeah.
That have an apartheid situation. So the minute there is a democracy, there is no Israel.
True.
Okay. True. So this is it is true. It is an existential war.
True.
For maintaining this colonial apartheid state.
And Netanyahu is fighting for making this colonial apartheid state a Jewish apartheid state. He only wants to remove the word colonial and replace a Jewish instead of it. So he's fighting for the Jewish identity of the country. He knows that if he loses the war, then the people supporting the Jewish identity will believe that it didn't give us any benefit. So let's return to the secular parties, for Lapid and his guys, for the people who believe more in being an American entity in the region rather than an independent Jewish state. And that's the main divergence between Netanyahu and Biden today. So he is protecting the Jewish identity of the country he believes in, and that's what he is fighting for. He knows that if he lost the war, then the entity would return to be a secular entity. His whole project of making the country a Jewish entity will fail, and that's why he is saying that it's an existential threat for me, and he's acting on this basis. That's what he can't bear losing at any front inside the region, and that's what drives his decisions. Regarding what drives the acts of resistance decisions, they know that at this war, the Israeli assessment of how much Hizbullah used of its power. Well, they assess between 5 to 15%. After 10 months, you being able to deter a power like Israel using 5 to 15% of your power is a huge achievement. So I think still the resistance has a lot to use. What it will do, how will it react to the assassination? I'm the type of guy who doesn't believe in stating or giving my opinion about how will they react. I just believe in whatever they decide to do, and it's not because I believe in them randomly. It's because throughout the last tens of years, their decisions were successful. They were fruitful. They achieved everything we have today by taking the decision they took. So whatever decision they decide today, they know better that it is the right decision to react to whatever happened in the last days.
So if me and you know that if these support fronts continue the way they are, the Israeli internal collapse is coming. Of course, Netanyahu knows that. And if you put your place, I mean, it's a really bad thing to put yourself in his place.
Yeah.
I wish never for you to do that. But clearly, you'd be calling the bluff of the axis of resistance. And I see the assassinations yesterday as calling the bluff of the axis of resistance. And, you know, given that he went to Washington, got the most standing ovations of any person ever that spoke in the Congress, more than any American president or foreign. He clearly got the okay to go ahead with anything that he wants to do, and that the U.S. is behind him all the way.
Behind him in Lebanon, not in Tehran. I believe that, yes, the U.S. gave him a green light to do what he did in Lebanon. Well, at the end of the road, Sayyid Fouad Shukr is someone who is wanted by the U.S. also. So what he is doing is also serving their interests. So they gave him a green light to achieve what he achieved inside of Lebanon. I don't think that there was an American green light for what he did in Tehran. Well, you know, just write on Google what happened, and you'll find tens and tens of American articles speaking about the stupidity of the decision.
Blinken claimed that he didn't know. Blinken just in an interview a few hours ago.
Yeah, I usually don't believe Americans because they are full of...
and Blinken said, I'm Israeli. He didn't even say I'm Zionist.
Yeah,
so,
true. But from an interest perspective, from a pragmatic perspective, there is no interest neither for the U.S. to give a green light for such assassination, especially that the guy who assassinated is the one responsible for the negotiations. So what you are sending a message that you don't want negotiations, you don't want the war to end, and this doesn't serve the American interest from a pragmatic point of view. So I think there was a green light for Lebanon, but there wasn't a green light for what happened in Tehran.
Well, I may disagree with you on that, especially because from day one on October 7th, after Hamas killed 12 Israeli generals, the top generals of the Israeli military, the Central Command moved generals from the United States to basically control the whole military war that's happening. And American generals are sitting inside the command centers of the Israeli military right now.
They have, they have control over main or strategic decisions, but there is also some space for Netanyahu to act inside. He has his space to give decisions. And I don't believe he has a green light only from a pragmatic point of view. You know, what's the American benefit? What's the American interest of killing, assassinating Ismail Haniyeh personally, and doing that while he is in Tehran, while he is in Iran? At the time, the U.S. is going for elections, and let's not forget first, well, the number one priority for the U.S. is China, number two is Russia. So why would they be giving a green light for Israel to give more force to a regional war? So from a pragmatic point of view, dragging the U.S. now inside the region more, in the regional war, at the time it's going through elections, at the time the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are fighting for who wins the elections, at a time where Biden is trying to protect his legacy. He now has a personal interest to tell the people that I'm the one who stopped the war. If he didn't do so, the people will remember him as the one leaving the Oval Office with the war in the region. And he doesn't want that to do. So out of a pragmatic point of view, from an American interest, I don't see that there is American interest in this assassination, especially in Iran. It doesn't mean that the Americans are angels who don't want a regional war. They don't want a regional war because of their interests. That's it.
So what do you think is going to be the response of the axis of resistance? 3 major assassination operations?
True. Well, first of all, I think that, of course, there is a retaliation. Of course, there is a response. There are so many scenarios. I usually don't like to suggest scenarios, but what I believe in is, in the last 10 months, there is no doubt that Israel is moving toward a strategic defeat. And, I read a lot of Western media. Go on Google, write Israel, war, Gaza, Lebanon, write these keywords. You'll find the most important intellectuals in the West writing about strategic defeat. You'll find the most important intellectuals inside of Israel writing about the strategic defeat, about not being able to achieve their goals. And let's remember, what were the three main goals of Netanyahu at the beginning of the war? He spoke about destruction of Hamas. He spoke about Gaza not being a threat anymore. And he spoke about Hamas not returning to power inside of Gaza. Well, Hamas isn't destroyed. Gaza is still a threat. And he is negotiating Hamas for the day after. So he failed in these three. What did Hamas say its goals were at the beginning? The first goal was for the Palestinian cause to return to be an international topic. Well, it is an international topic today.
It's the only topic.
It's the only topic today, true. And the main goal for any resistance is to let the enemy fail. Until now, Israel is failing. And that's a fact no one who really studies or really follows up with the situation can ignore.
So let's see, last time the Israelis attacked the embassy in Damascus, Iran responded decisively with hundreds of drones and missiles after giving everybody a heads up and still hitting its targets.
True.
Well, today we had a combined attack on the territory of 3 states and 4 nationalities being assassinated. Plus, Yemen has the score that it has to still settle.
True.
With Israel attacking Hodeidah port, oil facilities, and electric generators. So, should we be expecting a coordinated attack from 4 members of the Axis of Resistance?
Well, I really don't know, but what I expect, one of the good things in this axis is that leaders of the axis don't act based on what they feel, don't act based on anger. They act based on reality. They act in a way to achieve goals. This is the main difference between the Axis and Israel. Israel, when they feel angry, they commit a genocide. When the Axis of Resistance feels angry, they try to achieve the goal of deterring Israel, of achieving the military, the strategic goal of the war. What they will do is that they will choose the response they feel suitable to achieve 2 goals. Number 1, deter Israel for it not to commit such assassinations, not hitting the Beirut and not hitting Tehran another time. So it should be a response that will deter. And the second, and this is the most important thing, it should be a response that maintains the track that is happening from 10 months today, which is the track taking Israel to strategic defeat. So these are the 2 goals that will drive the leaders of the Axis of Resistance decision. If they find that, well, this goal is achieved by opening the forefront, they will do so. If they find that it only needs some tactical hits, they will do so. So they have 2 main goals they'll try to achieve. But if they assessed in April 14 that they need to use hundreds of between drones and missiles to deter Israel, and it seems this didn't achieve the goal, well, someone can expect for the Axis to do something more than April 14, because it seems that April 14 didn't do that job in the right way. So we may assess that they may do something more than April 14 as a response to what happened last day.
And the Americans promised that they will come to the defense of Israel.
That's the thing they do best. Of course, Israel is an American entity, an American colony in the region. Whatever happens, whatever the retaliation, they will come to defend Israel, even if there is a divergence between Biden and Netanyahu. As a matter of fact, at the end, it's Israel's interests what matters. And a clue here, I advise people to go on ChatGPT, write one question. What are the international laws that the US didn't abide by? You will find that the majority of these laws are related to Israel. The US is willing to do whatever is needed, even break international laws, which its narrative is based on them. Well, it's fighting Russia and China under the narrative that Russia and China are attacking international law. It's willing to break any narrative, to do anything to protect Israel, and that's what they will do.
So, if we follow on that thought, then it's clear they will defend Israel. They may attack Lebanon on behalf of Israel. I mean, things are...
There's a difference between defending and attacking. They're going to defend Israel, but they're not going to be any part of any attack in the region based on pragmatic.
I mean, they were already attacking Yemen.
No, Yemen is different. Yemen, I told at the beginning, Yemen is having a direct impact on American interests. The US came for Yemen, it's because Yemenis are hurting the US. Not because
they're an international power, not a regional power.
Exactly.
Yes.
They didn't come to defend Israel in Lebanon. They didn't come to defend Israel in any other country. They only came to a place where their interests are being hit. And I truly believe that they won't participate in any attack. They will participate in defense. But there's an important point here. In April 14, maybe 1 or 2 missiles only reached, or drones only reached inside of Israel. Out of hundreds of missiles and rockets and drones who were sent from Iran. But did it achieve the goal at the moment? Yes, it did. Because when we react with Israel, we don't try to achieve the same goals. I mean, when they destroy a certain building, we don't try to destroy the same building. It's enough for us to send a drone over the region, and it does the job. That's the importance of the Hudhud, the Hoopoe. The Hoopoe didn't hit any goal inside of Israel. It only took videos, and it achieved a cognitive success, a psychological success we were speaking before. So the resistance axis doesn't need to take a decision that is the same as Israel. It only needs to take a decision that it believes deters Israel.
Well, we can't read the future. We're all just human.
Sure.
Mohamad Hasan Sweidan, our guest for this episode of Wartime Cafe, thank you very much for being with us. We are, of course, living very heavy days with the losses of great men. We send our condolences to our people and our nations across, and all those who love freedom across the world. You're watching Wartime Cafe. We are still in Assaha Cafe Hotel in Al-Dahiye, southern suburb of Beirut. Please visit our website, freepalestine.video, to donate and to subscribe to all our socials. Until we see you next time, we bid you all a free Palestine.